The history of ancient China raises too many questions today. We all know about the Chinese Wall and about ancient China. There are enough dark spots in Chinese history, but besides all this, there is no less mysterious find. Warriors made of terracotta, a great army of stone soldiers, which are called the eighth wonder of the world. This find holds many secrets and mysteries indeed. But why is China so determined to hide the truth about it until now? Let's figure it out. Hello, this is the Hidden Truth channel and I'm Emma. I work hard for you, so subscribe, like, and let's get started. At one time, all sorts of archaeological finds in China made a lot of hype, and one of them can be the Terracotta Army, which is officially considered as one of the archaeological wonders of the world. Almost nothing is known about the history of the clay army creation, but the Terracotta Army is impressive even in photographs. It definitely does not fail to impress. More than 8,000 life-size clay soldiers with horses. And it's not just some schematic golems. Each statue here is amazingly detailed and quite different from all. Not only facial expressions are worked out, but even every detail of clothing and armor. Basically, this is a real, true army, only turned to stone. Dragons of wars of those times are one of the visiting cards of ancient China. Just like the Great Chinese Wall, a world historical heritage which has no less mysteries today. I want to understand this issue because so many people still cannot give an exact answer. Why did they create this army? We will put together historical facts and try to find out their real history. At the end of the video, we will look at unique photos and what is important at those facts that can turn the well-known antiquity of ancient China. Exactly 48 years ago, on March 29, 1974, one of the most massive archaeological discoveries of the 20th century was made. A Chinese peasant decided to drill an artesian well on his plot of land. But instead of water, he discovered a clay statue of a life-size warrior with a spear in his hand. Of course, it sounds funny, but this is how the famous terracotta army of Emperor Qin Shihuang was found. There were no archaeologists, maps, or chronicles. Antiquity was found by accident. It's amazing that there is no mention of this grand construction in written sources. Information about the Terracotta Army hasn't been preserved in chronicles, tablets, or scrolls, although in theory, such a grandiose project of antiquity should have left a mark in the history. But we will talk about it later. The Terracotta Army is one of the strangest archaeological excavations in the world. Judge for yourself. Looking at all this, there are many questions about logistics, as well as about labor and, most importantly, about past technologies of 2,000 years ago. How could ancient people carry out such tremendous work and manage to do everything in just a few decades? However, the question of dating remains open. Some researchers do not believe in the hypothesis of the ancient origin of the Terracotta Army, and there are quite good reasons for this. The number of soldiers is more than 8,000, 150 cavalry horses, and 130 chariots, harnessed with 520 horses. Just imagine these numbers. Nevertheless, Chinese scientists conducted some analysis and found out that the horses were made taking into account the features of the local breed, but they failed to find out where the warriors were made, or they just don't reveal information. For decades, a whole generation of archaeologists has been studying terracotta warriors. But even today, new facts are emerging that were kept silent previously for some reason. It is interesting how this unique discovery was passed to us. In the history, all the action took place east of the Lishan mountain, about 40 kilometers from the ancient capital of China. The army is located east of the emperor's tomb. Local builders told such a story. At first, it was not clear which period in history the clay warrior belongs in, with all his several thousand comrades arranged in 11 corridors of the underground gallery. However, it became clear soon that under the first gallery there is also a second and a third one. It seems like nothing special, but only 20 years later, absolutely different archaeologists found the highest authorities and generalship of the clay soldiers. Then 7 years later, the imperial rear was found, and 20 years later, in 2001, the first statues of functionaries were found. However, a strange pattern appears, as if generals and functionaries were finished later, but we'll talk about this today. The main version states that the emperor created this army to accompany him in the afterlife, so to speak, protect his tomb even after death. In other words, this army was created to scare off alive ones. 8,000 terracotta warriors were made, painted, armed, and placed in battle order to accompany the emperor. In the afterlife, they were supposed to serve as a monument to his vanity, wealth, and ambitions for a long time. The Chinese government carefully guarded this army from all foreigners. Unique exhibits hadn't been taken abroad. Only Western scientists were allowed to see them. This raises many questions. We should also pay attention to the method of their manufacture. It is no less mysterious. Each statue has its own unique facial features. Of course, it is very interesting how ancient Chinese sculptors made a whole army of ceramic soldiers with individual features. Furthermore, each sculpture has its own ear shape. The soldiers are different and represent quite different people. The weight of one terracotta warrior is approximately 130–200 kilograms. And I will remind you that there are more than 8,000 of them. The question arises, how 8,000 statues were transported? They had to be loaded, transported, and unloaded in some way. Just imagine the situation. One sculpture is dropped, its arm falls off, and everything starts over again. Their height seems strange too. It's about 2 meters. It would probably be easier to make them real-life size because we know Chinese from history as people of short stature. And furthermore, how the sculptures were assembled and the details were worked out, how they were baked. Here the question arises again. Where were they baked exactly? Where are the ovens? Where are at least the remains of these huge structures? The ovens should have been preserved, or at least their ruins. There are no ovens, but there are thousands of clay soldiers. That's how it turns out. And today, at the site of a historical find, a whole city and a museum for tourists have already emerged. Of course, filming is strictly prohibited here. Excavations have been going on for decades, and it seems there is no end in sight. And now, the most important thing. In 2007, after long negotiations, a few clay soldiers were finally handed over to a museum in Germany for an exhibition. Let me remind you that before this moment, foreign archaeologists were completely forbidden to approach these statues. So German scientists did an analysis and found out that the statue was not made in ancient times, but only a few decades ago. Of course, a grand scandal broke out after this. The Chinese authorities demonstratively revealed several factories in the country that produced clay soldiers and reached a verdict. The tomb of Qin Shihuang and all statues are genuine. And if they found a counterfeit in the museum, it means this museum ordered a duplicate from one of the factories. However, this is not all. Upon closer inspection of the warriors, several questions arise. Firstly, no Chinese historical source contains at least one mention about the ancient army. The entire context of the 38 years of construction and 700,000 workers appeared only after the discovery of clay soldiers, as if it was made up. It seems strange, because such a grand project couldn't completely pass by the chronicles, or could. In fact, a massive construction can't be hidden from anyone. Well, let's say that the relevant sources were simply destroyed. Although, again, many materials survived about Qin Shihuang's self-governance. Another, no less impressive fact, the weapon in soldiers' hands. Moreover, the most genuine, all weapons look like new. Chemical analysis showed that the enamel applied for the figure contains chromium dioxide, thanks to which, for 2,000 plus years, it has hardly lost its shine. All this is thanks to the chrome contained in the coating. In history, the chrome plating method appeared quite recently. It was invented in the 1920s in Europe. The ancient Chinese knew about it, but couldn't use it. And when scientists tried to find out how the bronze weapons of clay soldiers could survive for 2,000 years without losing their fighting condition, they were pretty shocked, because this discovery completely turns over all known history. Well, and most importantly, why they don't give permission to study this army to other countries. All because German scientists said that terracotta warriors are not 2,000 years old, not 1,000, and probably not even 100 years old. Considering this, I have a sneaking suspicion. Is it a scam in order to maintain the opinion of the antiquity of Great China? Especially if we recall a lot inconsistencies of the Great Chinese Wall. But as a bonus, I'll tell you about another amazing discovery in China. But don't forget to subscribe to my channel, because I really try my best to find new interesting topics for videos. In China, there is a shop where you can buy a whole terracotta warrior. Such a warrior, for example, in terms of yuan, is worth about $15,000. And just one brick, which a real terracotta soldier was made of, located in the Qin Shihuang's era tomb, costs tens of thousands of dollars. Just one brick owner can exchange it, for example, for a decent mansion in the Beijing suburbs. However, if researchers say that this brick is a fake, then you will get cigarettes with matches and a couple of yuan. And that, as they say, is another story. Be sure to watch the video about Australia on my channel. There are no less things hidden from society. There is a lot you definitely didn't know before. People need to know the truth of the world. Send this video to your loved ones so they also know about this grand falsification of ancient China. And don't forget to subscribe. There is a lot of exciting research ahead of you. Bye!